Judge Judy had seen people chase attention before. She had watched liars rehearse tears, watched arrogant defendants mistake confidence for credibility, and watched ordinary disputes explode into unforgettable courtroom moments. But even she paused for a fraction of a second when the young woman at the defendant's table smiled directly into a tiny phone hidden inside her designer handbag and whispered, "Keep recording. This is about to make me famous." The courtroom didn't react immediately. The bailiff hadn't noticed it yet. The plaintiff was too anxious to understand what had just happened, but Judge Judy noticed. She always noticed. And in that single moment, the case stopped being about a damaged custom wedding dress worth a few $1,000s. It quietly became something much darker, a story about humiliation, manipulation, and a desperate obsession with internet fame that would end with one verdict nobody in that courtroom would ever forget. What nobody realized was that another phone already existed, one that wasn't in the defendant's purse, one that contained a recording capable of destroying every carefully crafted lie she had planned to upload later. Pay close attention, because that hidden recording would eventually change everything. Before this story goes any deeper, make sure you're subscribed for more unforgettable courtroom stories like this. And if you're watching but haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Also, comment below and tell us where you're watching from, because this courtroom battle is about to take a turn no one could have predicted. The defendant introduced herself as Karen Mitchell. Millions of social media users knew her by another name. Karen Karma, a content creator famous for confrontation videos, public pranks, and dramatic arguments that almost always painted her as the misunderstood victim. She entered the courtroom wearing expensive sunglasses despite being indoors. She removed them slowly, almost theatrically, before flashing a confident smile toward the spectators. It wasn't the smile of someone worried about losing. It was the smile of someone expecting another viral clip. Experienced judges understand something many people don't. People seeking justice usually watch the judge. People chasing attention watch the audience. Karen never stopped checking who was looking at her. Judge Judy leaned back without saying a word. Silence can become the loudest question inside a courtroom. The plaintiff, Emily Parker, looked nothing like someone preparing for internet drama. She clutched an old white garment bag tightly against her chest. Her hands trembled slightly. Not from fear of speaking, but from exhaustion. Inside that bag wasn't simply damaged fabric. It held something far more meaningful. The courtroom didn't know that yet. Judge Judy's eyes rested on the faded zipper for only a second before moving back to Emily's face. Bodies confess before mouths do. Emily wasn't performing grief. She was carrying it. Karen rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, come on," she muttered loudly enough for nearly everyone to hear. "She's still acting." Several people in the gallery exchanged uncomfortable glances. Judge Judy remained perfectly still. She didn't interrupt. She didn't warn Karen. She simply allowed the words to settle over the courtroom like heavy smoke. Liars often rehearse speeches. They rarely rehearse patience. Emily finally spoke. Her voice remained calm despite everything she'd apparently endured. "I trusted her," she said quietly. Only 4 words. Yet somehow they carried more weight than Karen's confident entrance. The narrator could almost feel the room shifting. This wasn't beginning like a lawsuit over damaged clothing. This felt personal. Judge Judy folded her hands together. "What exactly happened?" she asked. Before Emily could answer, Karen laughed. Not nervously, not politely, genuinely laughed. "It happened exactly how it's going to happen online," she said with a smirk. "People love watching someone fake being a victim." The courtroom fell silent. Even the bailiff slowly turned toward the defendant. Judge Judy didn't respond immediately. She simply looked down at the file already waiting on her bench. There was a single sealed envelope clipped beneath the paperwork. She had not opened it. Not yet. Timing mattered. Because sometimes the truth doesn't defeat arrogance immediately. Sometimes it waits until arrogance becomes its own confession. Karen leaned back confidently, completely unaware that the most dangerous piece of evidence in the courtroom wasn't sitting in Emily's hands. It was already within Judge Judy's reach. And when that envelope was finally opened, one hidden video would expose who had really turned the courtroom into a stage, and who had unknowingly recorded the ending of her own performance. Emily Parker took a slow breath before she spoke again. She wasn't searching for sympathy. She wasn't trying to impress the gallery. She looked only at Judge Judy as if hoping that one person in the room would finally listen without already deciding who she was. Judge Judy had presided over thousands of disputes, and she had learned one lesson that rarely failed. Real pain usually arrives quietly. Performance always announces itself. "Tell me from the beginning," Judge Judy said. Emily nodded. "My daughter was supposed to be married 3 months ago." The courtroom grew still. She gently unzipped the old garment bag resting across her lap and carefully removed an ivory wedding dress. It had once been elegant, but now a jagged tear ran down one side of the lace. Several sections were stained with dark cosmetic powder, and one sleeve had clearly been cut with something sharp. No one spoke. The dress wasn't simply damaged. It looked violated. Judge Judy studied it without touching it. Then she looked back at Emily. "You brought the original?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you've kept it exactly as it was?" "I couldn't bear to change anything." That answer lingered in the courtroom. Sometimes the smallest sentence reveals the deepest wound. Emily explained that she owned a small bridal boutique outside Sacramento. It wasn't a luxury chain or a famous designer studio. It was a family business her late mother had built nearly 30 years earlier. Every dress meant something. Every customer carried a story. When Emily accepted Karen Mitchell's request for a custom bridal collaboration, she believed it could bring attention to her struggling shop. Karen had introduced herself as a successful lifestyle creator who wanted to promote small American businesses. "It sounded like a dream," Emily admitted. The narrator understood why. Small businesses often survive on trust, and people who understand trust also know exactly how to exploit it. Emily described how Karen visited the boutique surrounded by cameras, assistants, and endless enthusiasm. She praised every design. She hugged employees. She promised millions of online viewers would see Emily's work. Judge Judy listened without interruption. Karen, meanwhile, smiled confidently as if she had heard the story dozens of times before. Emily continued. Karen selected the boutique's most expensive handcrafted wedding gown and requested several custom alterations. The work required hundreds of hours, hand-sewn lace, bimpormed fabric, hand-fitted embroidery. Emily even postponed other paying clients to meet Karen's filming schedule. "It wasn't just business anymore," Emily said softly. "We believed we were helping someone celebrate one of the happiest days of her life." Judge Judy noticed something else. Emily never once referred to the lost money first. She spoke about broken trust before broken contracts. That mattered. Cases about money usually begin with numbers. Cases about dignity begin with memories. Karen suddenly laughed under her breath. "Oh, please," she said. "She's making herself sound like some kind of saint." Judge Judy turned her eyes toward the defendant. Nobody asked for commentary. The room fell silent again. Karen crossed her arms but said nothing. Emily reached into the garment bag once more. This time she removed a folded handwritten note. Its edges had yellowed slightly. "My mother left this inside every custom wedding dress we ever made." Judge Judy unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was elegant. It simply read, "May this dress carry more love than fear. Mom." The courtroom became impossibly quiet. Even Karen stopped smiling for a moment. Emily's voice trembled. "Not with weakness, but with memory. My mother passed away 2 years ago. I kept her tradition alive." She swallowed hard. Karen knew that. Judge Judy slowly folded the note again. Truth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives folded inside an old piece of paper. The narrator could already sense this case moving somewhere no one expected. On paper, This looked like a dispute over damaged property. In reality, someone had taken a family's legacy, turned it into online entertainment, and left behind far more than financial loss. Judge Judy looked directly at Emily. "When did you first realize something was wrong?" Emily hesitated. Then she answered with a sentence that made the courtroom collectively hold its breath. "The morning I saw my mother's note being laughed at in one of Karen's deleted live streams." Karen's confident expression flickered for the first time. It lasted less than a second, but Judge Judy saw it. Experienced judges don't chase panic. They recognize the exact moment confidence begins to crack. And somewhere inside the paperwork, waiting on Judge Judy's bench, was evidence that would determine whether Emily's heartbreaking accusation was true, or whether Karen's carefully crafted public image was about to collapse before everyone watching. Karen Mitchell's smile returned almost as quickly as it had disappeared. People who build their lives around controlling the narrative often believe they can survive any accusation. They don't panic when someone tells the truth. They panic when they realize someone else controls the story. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly. She had not interrupted Emily's testimony once. Now it was Karen's turn. "So," Judge Judy said calmly, "tell me what happened." Karen adjusted the expensive bracelet on her wrist before answering. Every movement felt practiced, as though she had rehearsed this performance in front of a mirror. "It's simple," she began confidently. "Emily begged me to promote her business. She offered me a free custom dress in exchange for publicity. The dress wasn't finished on time, it wasn't professionally made, and she's using my audience to get attention." She shrugged. "When I refused to wear it, she decided to sue me." Several people in the gallery exchanged uncertain looks. It sounded believable, at least on the surface. That was the danger of a well-rehearsed lie. A convincing story often arrives before the evidence does. Judge Judy didn't react. Instead, she quietly asked, "Did you sign an agreement?" Karen smiled. "Of course." "And did you read it?" "I didn't need to. My manager handled all of that." Judge Judy wrote something in her notebook. Tiny details matter. People who tell the truth usually know the commitments they personally made. People hiding behind others often distance themselves from responsibility. Karen continued before anyone asked another question. "I've worked with dozens of businesses. Most of them are grateful." She glanced toward Emily with a dismissive laugh. "Honestly, she's emotional because her little shop isn't successful." Emily lowered her eyes, not because she believed the insult, because she had heard it before. Judge Judy noticed, when someone cannot defeat the facts, they often attack the person presenting them. That wasn't a defense. It was an attempt to erase the witness. Karen leaned back comfortably. "My followers know exactly who I am." She pointed toward herself with complete confidence. "I've built my reputation by exposing dishonest businesses." The room remained silent. Then she delivered the sentence that changed the emotional temperature of the courtroom. "People believe me because I'm the brand." Nobody moved. The plaintiff tightened her grip on the garment bag. The bailiff looked toward Judge Judy. Even Karen's own manager, seated quietly behind her, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Judge Judy had heard thousands of statements from defendants over the years. Some revealed guilt, others revealed arrogance. This one revealed both. Confidence is never evidence. Judge Judy finally looked directly into Karen's eyes. "You believe your audience determines what's true?" Karen smiled. "Online? Absolutely. And in here?" Karen gave a short laugh. "This courtroom is just another audience." The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument. The narrator could almost feel the pulse of the room change. Judge Judy didn't raise her voice. She didn't show anger. She simply closed the file in front of her. People expecting an emotional reaction rarely prepare for controlled silence. Karen mistook that silence for uncertainty. She kept talking. "My videos get millions of views," she smirked. "After today, this case probably will too." The gallery remained frozen. Emily never looked at Karen. Instead, she stared quietly at the folded note her mother had written years earlier. That contrast told Judge Judy everything she needed to know. One woman was protecting memories, the other was protecting an image. Judge Judy slowly folded her hands. "Mrs. Mitchell." Karen answered immediately. "Yes?" "You've spoken a great deal about your audience." Karen smiled confidently. "They're the reason I'm successful." Judge Judy nodded once. "And are they also the reason this contract required filming approval from both parties before any footage could be published?" Karen's expression changed, only slightly. But experienced judges recognize the first crack long before everyone else notices the wall collapsing. Karen hesitated for the first time all morning. "I don't remember that." Judge Judy didn't respond. She simply reached toward the stack of documents resting beside the sealed envelope. Somewhere inside those pages was a signature. Somewhere inside that envelope was a recording. And before this hearing ended, Karen would discover that the most dangerous camera in the courtroom wasn't the one she secretly brought. It was the one she never knew had been watching from the very beginning. The courtroom had grown so quiet that the rustle of a single sheet of paper sounded impossibly loud. Judge Judy didn't rush. She had learned long ago that truth gains power when it arrives at exactly the right moment. Karen Mitchell sat with her arms folded, her confident smile carefully restored. She believed the brief hesitation over the contract meant nothing. After all, she had spent years talking her way through uncomfortable interviews, angry customers, and online controversies. One more courtroom was just another stage. But this stage belonged to someone else. Judge Judy lifted the contract from the stack and adjusted her glasses. "Miss Mitchell," she said evenly, "this agreement contains your electronic signature." Karen shrugged. "So?" Judge Judy continued reading. "No photographs, live streams, recordings, or promotional content involving the boutique or its employees may be published without written approval from both parties." She looked up. "Did I read that correctly?" Emily answered softly. "Yes, Your Honor." Judge Judy turned back toward Karen. "Did you receive written approval?" Karen smiled again. "I didn't think I needed it." "You didn't answer my question." A brief silence followed. "No." Judge Judy nodded once. "Thank you." The words sounded almost gentle, but everyone in the courtroom could feel the pressure increasing. Experienced judges know that simple admissions often become the strongest evidence. Karen shifted in her chair for the first time. "It wasn't a big deal," she insisted. "Everyone records everything these days." Judge Judy remained expressionless. "No, Miss Mitchell." She paused. "Everyone doesn't sign contracts promising they won't." The gallery became perfectly still. The narrator could almost feel Karen's confidence slipping, not dramatically, but almost invisibly, like sand falling through someone's fingers before they realize their grip has loosened. Karen attempted another smile. "My followers loved the videos." Judge Judy answered immediately. "This courtroom isn't judging your follower count." She closed the contract. "It's judging your conduct." Those 7 words landed harder than any shouted argument. Emily lowered her eyes. For the first time that morning, someone had finally separated internet popularity from accountability. Karen leaned forward. "She only sued because the videos got attention." Judge Judy looked directly at her. "Did they also receive attention after your team deleted them?" Karen froze. Only for a heartbeat, but it was enough. The courtroom noticed real surprise cannot be rehearsed. Karen recovered quickly. "I delete content all the time." "Interesting." Judge Judy folded her hands together. "Because according to your testimony, those videos weren't important." Karen answered too quickly. "They weren't." Judge Judy nodded almost imperceptibly. "And yet they disappeared immediately after receiving a preservation request." Karen didn't speak. The silence answered louder than words. The narrator understood exactly what had happened. Karen believed deleting something erased responsibility. She forgot that digital footprints often survive longer than pride. Judge Judy looked toward Emily. "When you sent the preservation request, what happened next?" Emily took a slow breath. I received an anonymous email. Karen's eyes narrowed. The courtroom leaned in. Emily continued. It said someone had saved everything before the videos disappeared. A ripple moved through the spectators. Karen laughed nervously. Anybody could fake an email. Judge Judy didn't disagree. They could. She reached toward the sealed envelope, clipped beneath the case file. Every eye followed her hand. The bailiff instinctively stepped closer. No one breathed. This was the moment the courtroom had been approaching since Karen first walked through the doors. Before Judge Judy opened the envelope, ask yourself one question. What do you think was inside? If you already have a theory, comment *justice below, because what Judge Judy was about to reveal would completely rewrite everything this courtroom believed only minutes earlier. Judge Judy carefully broke the seal. Inside rested a small flash drive. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. Just a simple piece of plastic no larger than a thumb. Sometimes the smallest objects carry the heaviest truths. Karen's confident expression finally cracked. "What's that?" she asked, her voice noticeably quieter. Judge Judy didn't answer immediately. She handed the flash drive to the courtroom clerk. "I'd like this displayed on the monitor." Karen's attorney suddenly leaned toward her and whispered something urgently. For the first time all morning, Karen didn't smile back. Instead, she swallowed. Because somewhere inside that tiny device wasn't merely another video. It contained the one recording Karen never knew existed, a recording captured before her live stream began, before the filters, before the edits, and before the performance. And in less than a minute, the entire courtroom was about to meet the real Karen Mitchell. The courtroom monitor flickered to life. No one spoke. Judge Judy sat perfectly still, her hands folded neatly on the bench. She wasn't looking at the screen. She was watching Karen. Experienced judges know that the face often reveals the verdict long before the evidence does. The courtroom clerk inserted the flash drive. A timestamp appeared. It was recorded 37 minutes before Karen's now deleted live stream had begun. Karen's attorney suddenly leaned forward. "Your Honor, we'd like to know the source of this recording." Judge Judy nodded. "You will." She turned to the clerk. "Play it." The video began. The picture wasn't polished. There were no filters, no background music, no dramatic captions. It was raw security footage from a camera mounted inside Emily's bridal boutique. The camera faced the fitting area. Karen entered the frame laughing with two members of her production crew. Emily wasn't in the room. Neither were any employees. Karen held the wedding dress in front of her. One crew member asked, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Karen smiled. This is how the video goes viral. She carefully placed the dress across a display table. Then she reached into her handbag. The courtroom collectively leaned forward. Out came a small cosmetic powder compact. Karen deliberately scattered the dark powder across the front of the gown. Gasps echoed through the gallery. Emily closed her eyes, but the recording wasn't finished. Karen then picked up a pair of fabric scissors from the alteration station. She looked directly toward her cameraman. "Get a close-up." Without hesitation, she sliced through the lace sleeve one clean cut, then another. The sound of scissors echoed through the courtroom speakers with horrifying clarity. Nobody moved. Judge Judy didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. The evidence was speaking for itself. Karen laughed on the recording. "Perfect." She gently wrinkled part of the dress before stepping backward. "Now when we start filming, I'll act shocked. Everyone will blame the boutique." One production assistant hesitated. "What if they sue?" Karen shrugged. "They can't beat millions of followers." "Silence, Dasponsil, silence." The confidence disappeared from Karen's face before the video even ended. Truth doesn't shout. It simply removes every place a lie has left to hide. Judge Judy nodded toward the clerk. "Continue." The next portion showed Emily entering the room several minutes later. She froze. Her hands immediately covered her mouth. The confusion on her face couldn't have been rehearsed. She wasn't performing. She genuinely had no idea what had happened. Then came the moment that changed the emotional heart of the case. Emily carefully picked up the folded, handwritten note left inside the dress by her late mother. Karen, still preparing her cameras, looked at it and laughed. "Leave it there." One crew member asked why. Karen answered without hesitation. "It'll make her cry harder." The courtroom erupted. Several spectators shook their heads in disbelief. Even Karen's own manager buried his face in his hands. The bailiff glanced toward Judge Judy, waiting for instructions. Judge Judy simply raised one finger. Order returned instantly. She allowed the silence to settle, because sometimes silence forces people to hear what outrage cannot. Karen finally spoke. It was edited. Judge Judy turned toward her. "The security footage?" Karen hesitated. "Yes." Judge Judy reached into the envelope once more. This boutique surveillance company authenticated the original recording and verified it was never altered. She placed the certification on the bench. "And your own production schedule confirms you were present at that exact time." Karen looked toward her attorney. He didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. People who build careers manipulating public perception often forget one uncomfortable truth. Reality doesn't need editing. Judge Judy looked directly at Karen. "Your followers saw a victim." She paused. This courtroom has now seen the director. Karen's shoulders dropped. Her carefully practiced confidence was gone. No dramatic speech, no sarcastic smile, no eye roll, only silence. Emily wasn't crying because she had won. She was crying because someone had finally believed what she had been trying to say from the very beginning. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. She closed the file slowly and looked toward both parties. "The evidence establishes liability." She paused again. "Now we're going to discuss the consequences." Karen's eyes widened. Because she suddenly realized the destroyed dress wasn't going to be the most expensive thing she lost that day. Judge Judy closed the case file with deliberate precision. The sound echoed through the silent courtroom. No one looked away. Karen Mitchell sat motionless, staring at the courtroom monitor that had only minutes earlier dismantled the online persona she had spent years creating. The confidence that had entered with her that morning had vanished. Even the expensive sunglasses, resting on the defense table, now looked like props from a performance that had ended. Judge Judy finally spoke. "Ms. Mitchell, this case began as a dispute over damaged property." She paused. "It has become something far more serious." Karen lowered her head. For the first time all morning, she had nothing prepared to say. Judge Judy continued. "You intentionally destroyed property that did not belong to you. You violated a written agreement. You knowingly created false content designed to damage a small business. Then you attempted to convince this court that the victim had fabricated the entire story." The courtroom remained perfectly still. Judge Judy looked directly at Karen. "You didn't simply damage a dress." She glanced toward Emily. "You tried to destroy a reputation that took decades to build." Emily quietly wiped away a tear, not because she expected sympathy, because someone had finally spoken the truth she had carried alone for months. Judge Judy reached for her ruling. "The plaintiff is awarded the full value of the custom wedding gown, reimbursement for lost business resulting from the fraudulent publication of the videos, court costs, and all documented repair expenses permitted within this court's jurisdiction." Karen closed her eyes. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. She addressed Karen with calm authority. "I am also referring the authenticated evidence and contractual findings to the appropriate civil authorities for any additional proceedings they believe are warranted outside this courtroom." Karen's attorney slowly lowered his head. He knew the consequences would not end when they walked out of the courthouse. Judge Judy leaned forward one final time. Then she delivered the sentence that everyone in the courtroom would remember long after the money had been forgotten. When attention becomes more valuable than integrity, every camera eventually records the truth instead of the performance. The courtroom was silent, not because people were shocked, because no one could think of anything to add. Karen looked toward Emily. For the first time, there was no smirk, no sarcasm, no confidence. Only the unmistakable expression of someone realizing that the audience she had spent years trying to impress had finally seen the person behind the screen. Emily carefully folded her mother's handwritten note and returned it to the repaired garment bag. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply held the note close to her heart. The narrator understood why. She hadn't come to court for revenge. She had come because her mother's legacy deserved the truth. Sometimes justice isn't measured by the size of the judgment. Sometimes it's measured by the moment an honest person finally stops questioning their own worth. Within 24 hours, clips from the courtroom, not Karen's edited videos, but the official hearing began spreading across social media. People who had once defended her demanded answers. Former business partners released statements saying they would no longer work with her. Several creators admitted they had experienced similar treatment but had been too afraid to speak publicly. 48 hours later, major sponsors quietly ended their partnerships. Her follower count, once her greatest source of confidence, began falling by the thousands every hour. 72 hours after the verdict, Emily's bridal boutique received hundreds of supportive messages from people across the country. Many ordered custom dresses without ever planning a wedding. Some simply wanted to support someone who had refused to let cruelty define her story. The wedding dress that had once symbolized humiliation became something else entirely. It became proof that dignity can survive deception, proof that kindness is not weakness. Proof that the smallest pieces of evidence often carry the greatest weight. As for the handwritten note inside the dress, Emily placed it back exactly where her mother had always hidden it. Future brides would never know how close it came to being remembered only as part of a lie. Instead, it became part of a story about courage. Judge Judy had said very little throughout the hearing. She didn't need dramatic speeches. She allowed evidence, patience, and truth to speak louder than outrage ever could. Because real justice doesn't chase attention. It quietly waits for the moment when the facts become impossible to escape. And on that unforgettable day, the woman who tried to turn a courtroom into a TikTok show discovered the one audience she could never manipulate, the truth itself. If this story reminded you that honesty still matters, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel for more unforgettable courtroom dramas. And tell us in the comments, if you had been sitting in that courtroom, what moment convinced you Karen's performance was finally over?